Assalamualaikum class. We are going to have our 7th lecture of subject science grade 7 and unit number 4, transport in the plants. So before moving on to the lecture, so what you need to do is, again, you need to read entire paragraphs from the book. And all green plants, they need water and carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. Photo means light, synthesis means combination of elements or compounds to connect it as a whole. So all green plants, they need mineral salts from the soil. During photosynthesis, waste oxygen is produced. They need to get rid of that. Simple celled algae like cholera, carbon dioxide, water and mineral salts, they are simply diffused out. Waste oxygen diffuses out. So all the products, either all the gases like carbon dioxide, either it's mineral salts or water or waste oxygen, this all will be diffused out. We need to know what is diffusion. Diffusion is the movement of a substance from an area of higher concentration to an area of lower concentration. Diffusion is an important process for the living things. It is how substances move in and out of the cell. If you look at the basic facts, they written, simple single-celled plant-like organisms move materials in and out of their bodies by diffusion. So basically, diffusion plays a really important role in the movement of a substance from the area where they have the higher concentration to an area where we have the lower concentration. Now we move on to the topic, the importance of phloem and xylem. Plant need transportation for materials. Obviously, plants, as it written over here, they don't have a heart, nor they do have a blood or the blood system. They need to transport materials. So how they're actually transporting the material to go from one part to the other based on the two separate groups of cells. So how basically the material is transported from one part to the other, we are going to discuss. They are transferring materials from one part to the other by two separate groups of cells, and they called xylem and phloem. So basically we are going to see what the xylem is, what are its functions, how it's actually doing its job, and phloem as well. Xylem tissue is used mostly for transporting water from the roots to the stems and leaves. So the function of xylem is to transport water. First, it is going to transport the water from the roots, then to the stems, and then to the leaves, but also transports other dissolved compounds. Phloem, on the other hand, is responsible for transporting food products from the photosynthesis. So basically, xylem is transporting water from the root, stems and leaves. Main function of the xylem is to transport water, while the phloem function is to transport the food which is produced from photosynthesis from leaves to non-photosynthesizing part of a plant such as roots and stems. Photosynthesis non-photosynthesizing parts are roots and stems, and photosynthetic parts are leaves. So xylem and phloem do not transport oxygen and carbon dioxide. So these gases move into the plant by a process called diffusion, which transfer the substances from a concentration of higher concentration to a concentration of lower one. Here they have the diagram of a vertical section of a plant stem, which is seen through a microscope. So these are basically the xylem and these are the phloem. You need to draw the diagram on your copies. So just go through the entire paragraph. Just take the lecture first and go to the lines, and you will get a complete understanding of what I was talking about in the lecture. So diffusion, we are done till here. Now we move on to the vessels, the companion cells. So what are basically vessels? Vessels, xylem consists. So vessels are basically present in xylem, as mentioned, seen in the lecture. Xylem consists of long, empty dead cells which form tiny tubes called vessels. So I think here is the time that you need to know about the difference between the xylem and phloem. But before that, I want to elaborate a little about the companion cell, the Steve plates, the Steve, all of that. Tube members do not have ribosomes or a nucleus, and they need companion cells to help them function as transport molecules. All their function is to actually transport the material or the molecules. Companion cells provide sieve tubes, members with protein necessary for signaling and ADP, adenopose triphosphate. You don't really need to remember this. Just go with the flow of the lecture. In order to help them transfer molecules between different parts of the plant. So what its main function is, it is helping to transfer the molecules between different parts of the. We have two columns. These are two tissues, xylem and phloem. Name of the process: xylem goes through a process of transpiration where it loses almost 90% of the water, and phloem goes through a process called translocation, that is the movement from one place to another. Substances moved. So substances moved and the structure, I have made a column and I've written 2 to 3 points extra. So just go through the difference and you will understand the rest of the table. Xylem carries water from roots to leaves, where on the other hand, phloem carries food from leaves to growing part and storage organs. It is made up of dead cells, and this is made up of living cells. Cell wall is thick in xylem, whereas the cell wall is thin in phloem. Cells are impermeable to water, whereas cells are permeable to food. Passive transportation of water and mineral occurs in xylem, whereas active transportation of sugars and other metabolites occur in phloem. For the lecture, if you have any questions or queries related to anything, just feel free to ask. Number 1, why do larger multicellular, many-celled plants need a transport system? Most multicellular plants and animals have too small a surface area to volume ratio, so diffusion would be too slow to provide the necessary molecules. Therefore, they require a system to transport nutrients and waste products around the organism. 2 is, what are the names of the two sets of tubes which make up the transport system of a plant? Plants have tubes that run through their stems and roots. These tubes carry water, minerals, and sugars. There are two types of tubes, xylem and phloem. The xylem and phloem connect the top and bottom of the plant. Question number 3 is, whereabout would you find the two sets of transport tubes in a leaf? There are two types of tubes, xylem and phloem. The xylem and phloem connect the top and bottom of the plant. So basically, answer to this question and the upper one is the same. I want all of you to write the question on your copy, and yes. So this is it for today's lecture. I hope you have understood the concept of xylem and phloem and their differences. Thank you so much.